welcome to How to Get into Esports and Event Management, hosted by this lovely group of gentlemen, which we will introduce ourselves. My name is Ross Ledford. I'm from North Carolina. I went to NC State for material science and engineering, and now I use my major 0 times a day. I work for Rec Global, which there'll be a slide on that a little later explaining more, but basically I give esports solutions to major non-endemic companies, as well as I help run Rogue, one of the major esports organizations in the U.S.
So I am Chris Carr, or Christopher Carr. So I'm the middle guy up there, if you couldn't have guessed. But so my background is one of the co-founders of Raleigh Premier Gaming, and went to school and got my bachelor's in international business, which I use slightly more than Ross uses his engineering degree. But other than that, I'll give it over to this guy.
And I'm Cullen Alexander. I also went to NC State with Ross. I have a degree in chemical engineering and paper science, which I use every day, but hopefully not for long. Also a co-founder of RPG.
And then we have our guest.
I don't know why it's so special. It's just special because I was late getting onto the panel. That's the only reason I was special here. So I'm Dr. Joey Gryziak. I'm the director of eSports at Shenandoah University. I'm also an associate professor of sport management and our new academic eSports major that'll be starting next fall. So yeah, that's where I am. My background is in sport management and sports, and my passion has always been video games. So I put those two together when I realized I had to do research for the rest of my life. And when you put sports and video games together, esports is kind of the child that comes out of that. So I've been researching it for about 5 or 6 years at this point, and never thought it'd get to the point that it is now. And I'm just happy to be on this panel, and hopefully I can contribute something with these guys up here. They're the experts in the field. I'm just kind of tagging along and riding their coattails.
All right, cool. Well, so here's a brief explanation of the company I work for. We're an agency company, and so basically we represent brands in the esports space. But we also have, like I said, the esports organization, and I actually do a lot of the live event activations. So I set up booths and things at events. I had that State Farm activation, basically users would come up, create a poster at the booth, and we'd print it live, and on the back is State Farm's logo. So then whenever a crane camera goes through, State Farm's logo is on the crowd, and they're really happy about that. And also, one of our players, Dr. Lupo, he's a pretty well-known Fortnite player. I helped do a Fortnite event, I think it was back in July, where we gave out $15,000 in scholarships. My company, one of our other clients, also gave out $450,000 overall this year in esports scholarships. So a lot of really cool stuff. I work a lot, and yeah, that's the general idea there. I'll let these guys talk about RPG real quick.
So RPG is a very grassroots thing. We pretty much started less than a year ago. It's March will be our first year anniversary, but we're pretty much local to Raleigh. We've started to kind of branch out into other events, but what we do is we have like 15 setups of consoles of various ages, and we have new gen stuff as well as the old NES, SNES stuff. So we can bring that, but what our base is we want to build community with gamers, even going into like cosplay, I don't know, beyond cosplay, but a little bit of everything. It goes from anime, cosplay, gaming. We want to be central in those communities and organize them and bring events that are well run and attractive for people to come to.
And our phrase is to build the community that your community wants to have.
Yeah.
And then we have a slide on.
Yeah, so there's Shenandoah University, the esports stuff. So as I kind of mentioned earlier, our esports program at the university really has 2 different arms, one on the competitive side and one on the academic side now. On the competitive side, this is our first year competing as a varsity program under NACE, which is the National Association of Collegiate Esports. There are about 100 schools that are members of NACE right now, and those are considered the varsity programs in the country, and NACE was really considered the first organizing governing body for varsity collegiate programs in the country. And so we compete right now in Overwatch, League of Legends, and Rocket League, and against schools from NAIA schools to JUCO schools to other NCAA schools. And so that's on the competitive side. And right now we just have volunteer coaches. We have about 35 students in the program, so we're just getting off the ground. and we're doing some heavy recruiting for next year to hopefully compete on a higher level. And then on the academic side, eSports academic program starting in the fall of 2019 will be, it's most politically correct and easy to say just one of the first in the country to offer an eSports degree, because technically there's one other school right now that I've heard of, maybe 2 or 3 others that are kind of thinking about a major in eSports. We're certainly one of the first in the country to offer this, and it has multi-tracks where you can focus on coaching, you can focus on the management side, or you can focus on the media and communication side. I wrote the curriculum, finally got approved by the University Curriculum Committee a couple weeks ago, which is not an easy thing to do in academia. Sometimes it takes a long time to get some of that stuff through. So finally it is official. It is not pending anymore, which is nice to get rid of that word pending. And we're just now starting to get our first applicants for our first eSports major. So definitely very exciting, and something I think we're going to see a lot more of in the future. And what I'll talk about as we get going here is the practical experiences that I'm going to incorporate into this major, especially with event management, because that is a huge thing that people in the industry want students to have when they come out and they're applying for jobs, is that practical, real-world experience of actually running eSports events, so they can learn while they're doing it, instead of just getting a grade in an eSports governance class. Actually having something on the resume that they ran an event with, even 50 to 100 people. Something where they have that experience is going to be really important and valuable for these students to have when they come out with this degree. And so that's what the focus is of that major, is to really give them a practical feel of what it's like to work in the eSport industry. So when they come out, they can work in eSports. And if they don't, hopefully what they learn will transition to other areas of the business world or whatever they want to go into as well.
All right, cool. And so in my mind, one of the best ways to understand the grand scale of esports is actually going back and learning the true history of how esports started. And so I'm kind of, here's the true, the dictionary definition of esports: a multiplayer video game, competitive spectators, yada yada. But esports is way bigger than just competitive video game. It's community. It's grown massively with Fortnite nowadays. It's such a different thing than it was even 2 years ago, or even last year. We would have no idea how big Fortnite was going to be at this time last year. But I'm going to go through a few games that you may or may not have heard of, and kind of a brief history of esports and how it all started. I don't know if any of you heard of Space War, but in 1968 in Princeton's Artificial Intelligence Lab, they actually had the first Space War tournament. It was called the Intergalactic Space War Olympics. And so back in the 60s, they were already doing video game tournaments. So it's not a new thing. It's just taken a while to really catch on and gain steam. The next one on the list is actually Space Invaders, which the crazy part about it, Space Invaders was so popular in Japan, they tripled the production of the 100 yen piece because so many people were playing it in the arcades. So just to give you an idea, it was huge. It was also one of the first major national tournaments that happened in the US in 1980. There was over 100,000 people in the US that competed in a Space Invaders tournament across malls all over the country. So yeah, it's kind of really cool. I really nerd out about all this kind of history stuff. That's just me. NetTrek is actually one of the first online multiplayer games. It came out, I forgot the year, I think it was 83, and it was a space-based multiplayer game, and I always like for people to know about that game. And then Game Master. Game Master was the first broadcasted video game television show in the 90s, and funnily enough, my supervisor is actually really good friends with the old host of the show, so it's really cool. And so yeah, they did a lot of, the funny thing about esports is there is some very cheesy things that have happened in the past, and you can also tell that by a lot of the uniforms and outfits people wear on stage. If you go back and look at some of the StarCraft days and what some people wore on stage, it's pretty amusing, to say the least.
Or there's that, they could wear that too on stage. That's pretty good too.
Yeah. And then actually, a lot of people think that MLG was one of the first tournament organizations, but actually the CPL, which was founded in '97, was the first major tournament organizer in the esports space. And yeah, they've done about $3 million in prizes to date. And they still run some events. It's mainly in Asia now, in the StarCraft community and things along those lines. And then of course, you can't have esports without MLG. And so of course in 2002, they were founded. They got really big with Halo and all their sponsors like Dr. Pepper and all that great stuff. And then they sold themselves to Activision and are basically a pseudo smaller company that runs some of their tournaments. It's very ambiguous exactly what they do right now. But yeah, Activision acquired the IP and now they had a major rebrand. But it's also very meme worthy. MLG is in 360 headshots and all that good stuff was a very big part of the Halo community back in the day. But yeah, so now it went from this to how amazing esports has been, even in the past year. They've got global projections going into the billions over the next 5 to 10 years. We've got major games like Fortnite. Every person knows at least 12 other people that have played Fortnite, and even their grandkids play Fortnite. And it was the perfect storm of battle royales being very instant gratification and people loving quick matches, and Fortnite having a game that could be played by 7-year-olds and 35-year-olds. And it was just, it happened, and they have rode that wave to, I want to say in September, they made around $600 to $800 million just off of their skin sales in 1 month. So it's a huge deal. And yeah, it's interesting I'm really excited to see how the Battle Royale game type progresses as a tournament, because it's very hard to see 100 people playing at the same time and all the different views. And from a viewership standpoint, I'm interested to see how that evolves, because I think it's going to push the limits of the technology, which is always good. But yeah, let's see what else we got here. So overall, how do you get involved in the esports from the base level? I've got 3 ways: supporting in fandom, being a coach, or actually doing events. And so the first one is the easiest. It's support, fandom, watch streams, buy merch. I'll tell you right now, the more merch you could buy would be great. We're supporting a team. That's one of the major ways to make money besides actually winning tournaments, because there's only one winner at a tournament majorly. And so merch like that, and there's even in-game skins like Rogues. I of course did everything Rogue on this one. Might be a little biased, but yeah, our FIFA player won the World Cup, and now there's people all over the world that uses Rogue jerseys in the game themselves. And so it's really cool how that happens. And this Jaeger guy, he dresses up in Rogue stuff and goes to all of our Rainbow Six events. And so we really appreciate that, because you would be surprised at the small amount of messages and support we actually get from the community. Like, it's just assumed that, oh, it's this big org, but no, it's only about 10 or so people running it at the top level, and any kind of support really helps. And so playing and coaching and organizing. Another easy way is just try and make a team with your friends. That's how I got into esports myself. I really liked League of Legends, so in college I created a League of Legends team. We went to our first tournament, and there was power strips hanging from the ceiling. We blew breakers at 12 times. It was a terribly ran event. But then I was like, hey, I think I can help this be better. And that's how I kind of got into event management to begin with. And it's all just about learning hands-on. And he talked about it earlier, because you never know what's going to go wrong. I had a 15,000 person tournament in a minor league baseball stadium, and we forgot to whitelist the IP for Overwatch, and so we couldn't actually host our major Overwatch tournament. And there's things that you have to just fix on the spot, and there's crazy things that happen with event management in general that you really just have to experience it and learn and be well vetted. And the easiest way is to just start. Like I was saying, my kind of steps is finding a group. Setting an actual schedule is really big when you're trying to have a team. A set time that everyone shows up, because it's so hard, even in video games or board games or anything, if you're trying to create a schedule, that's the hardest thing to actually hit. And then, yeah, review game, post-game stuff, and then actually attend tournaments, because these small-scale tournament organizers and event stuff, similar to RPG, like, just showing up is massive. You don't even have to really do anything, but going to these events and supporting the local people that are trying really hard to make this happen is huge.
Yeah, and like that's kind of big, because that saves. You have to look at it in the grand scheme. Everyone wants to go to the MAGFest because they're big. They've been around a long time, but look at the grassroots level of your local community and see what's there. because there's probably something there. And if there isn't anything there, you can build something, and we'll talk about that more. But looking at the local level is really, really important, and it's how it actually all grows.
Yeah, and so I mean, and the other way is to actually volunteer, and where you can set up tournaments online is by far the easiest. There's 12 different bracket sites that you can set up and get people to play online, and it's really easy. And just that slight bit of competitiveness that's not just an online game mode, but you're actually playing against people on a bracket is completely different. And that's the reason why I love esports is I'm a very competitive person, and I'm able to express that through video games. Which is really nice. And then attending local tournaments and at big events, volunteer. MAGFest, you can learn so much from just volunteering at the event. Be in the LAN area, help with the computers or something along those lines. Because I'll tell you right now, the thing that still intimidates me to this day is the network operations guys in the LAN area. Because I've done IT for like 10 years and I still don't understand the traffic shaping and all this craziness that they do. The funny thing about the internet here, I'm going really off tangent, but it's really cool. So the Gaylord's internet is very, very expensive. So what they actually do is they pay for a person's internet the entire year, business level, gigabit line across the river. And they have an antenna in his yard that they beam it over to the Gaylord to use it. So
And it's still cheaper.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, and it's insane. That's one of the things that you'll learn about the esports world is if I had to assume my estimate for a gigabit line in a hotel space, like $75,000, if not $150,000 for 3 or 4 days, and it's obscene. And it's just because of the way the structure is set up and how hotels kind of have another company that manages their IT, so they don't have to worry about it. And there's a lot of price gouging there, and people are trying to find out ways to help with that. 5G, I think, is going to be a big step in that because you can set up microsites and things like that. But that's something to look for in the future. And then, I'll let Chris talk more here, kind of on how to build your own grassroots events and how RPG has kind of taught them.
Yeah, and even Joey, you're probably kind of more of the large scale stuff, so feel free to chime in on that. That's I could talk about it a little bit, but like I said, that's more your area and probably your area as well, Ross. But just to kind of go into the grassroots level like we talked about, and sorry this is kind of bullet pointy and it's going to take a little bit, but I want to make sure we hit all of this and kind of cover it just so if it's something you want to do, we give you the tools that you need to start it. But really, first off, you have to come up with something that people want or need, and that's with any business. Or if you want to make it a business, that's the base you have to have. If you want it to just be something that's popular, it still has to be something that's entertaining to people. And this next bullet point, which is create a business plan, we could do a complete another panel about, but you still have to be able to, excuse me, I'm not going to talk about this a lot. It's just basically finances. Can't see what I wrote up there, so give me a second, guys. You have to structure, how is your company going to be built, who's going to be doing what. Marketing and if you want to make money, how is it going to make money? If you don't have a lot of money to start with, you're going to have to go to the bank and take out a business loan, and they're going to want you to have a business plan that explains all of this and how it's going to make money so you can pay them back, or else they will not give you a loan. And like I said, that whole business plan aspect is something we can do a complete another panel about. But moving forward, you're going to need to gauge interest on the idea you've come up with. Like, does anyone actually care about it? So going back to the other bullet point, is it something that people even want to go do? I don't know, what's a game that's not popular?
Oh gosh, I plead the fifth. I don't know. There's smaller games. It's interesting because like you could try and host a chess tournament, but people most likely won't show up to that. Or I will say there is actually like a closet chess community in the gaming world. I don't know if you know that, but I actually know a lot of people that play chess. But making it just something fun and play the top games, because that will guarantee the most people that actually come out. It kind of sucks because you may be a huge Paladins fan and you want that to be your thing, but I'll tell you right now that League of Legends or Fortnite is going to bring out more people. So you got to be realistic about that fact.
Your favorite game is Command and Conquer, but it's probably not most people's favorite game. I hate to tell you that. So doing something around that may not work out well for you. Do not spend a ton of money up front. Unless, like I said, you want to go to the bank and just blow it out, and that's not what we did. That's not what RPG is. We've spent the money we've had in excess from working our 40-hour-a-week jobs, and then also doing this, part-time pretty much. We haven't made a ton of money just yet, but there isn't a bill for RPG right now. Anything we've put into it is our equipment that we would probably buy anyway at some point, or we can liquidate it if we don't want to do it anymore.
And I will say that is one of the biggest things about esports events that people don't actually realize, is the sheer amount of equipment cost that goes into it. Because you've got the LAN in there where they have 100 computers with 2080 Ti's. They've got $250,000 in just computers in that room, not counting the networking equipment, and the lighting and the stage is expensive too, and it's just a step above, because the difference between hosting like a basketball tournament or something along those lines is all you have to do is have a few hoops and balls and that's done. But esports is a whole nother monster that has to deal with internet, power, all that kind of stuff, and just be realistic about that fact as well.
And also, to go into the tournament aspect of it, just because you put $10,000 prize pool on a tournament doesn't mean people are going to show up. I'll guarantee that.
We actually had some instances like that when we were first trying to start up RPG, where we put in our own money for a Call of Duty tournament. People said that they were going to come, super hype about it, and then day of, almost all the teams flaked and no one actually showed. And so we really have to be careful and not, like he said, spend a lot of money up front. It's really easy to just take some of the consoles you already have. Local bars would love for you to bring your consoles there and set up and have a game night, because not only does it build community, but it brings customers to them. Yeah.
And so that last bullet point, and we will talk about that again, I think it's even on the next slide, is be likable and be professional. And like I said, we'll talk about that more later on as to what that actually means.
Can I interject a little bit on that last one?
Yeah, go for it.
So I'm going to stick to the small stuff as well. If you look at this slide right here, I think this is a perfect slide, because unless I'm wrong, I don't see the word esports on here at all. I mean, this is event management 101 right here. This is how to run a small scale event, or even a large scale in a lot of concepts here. And this is the same thing that students need to do, that people need to understand how to do, is that this is a process. And I mean, to reiterate what Chris is saying over here, I mean, develop something people want. If they don't want to play that game, they're not going to come. Even if they do want to play it, if it's not easy for them to come and they don't see value in coming to the event, they're not going to come. And so, this is, you can go through these steps, and it might be a successful event, it might not be. And I think that these steps are absolutely perfect for how to start and get started on running these events. And you're going to have events that'll have nobody show up. You might have events where everybody shows up. Okay, and it's all about, once you plan it and go through this process, the event should run itself. The planning is the hardest part and the most work for running an event. And then it's kind of putting out fires all over the place when the event is going on. You just got to be a person, you got to be likable, got to be professional, so people have a good experience, keep them coming back for more. I mean, this is my esports event management class, boom, that's all the slide I need to show. We're going to run 2 events in that class every semester. Very practical things, and go through this exact same focus right here. And you can translate this to not only esports, but also to concerts, traditional sports. You can translate it to some kind of artistic performance on stage. It's running an event. Okay, so for my students, they got to learn the concepts for one of those events, because that translates to more than just the esports world. That can help them in any realm for running any event they have. So I think this is a great slide. So this is one, if you're going to take a picture of something, that's the one to take a picture of right there. And maybe later on, I haven't seen the rest of the slides, so there might be more. But I think these are great points right here. So good job with this slide.
Yeah, you can run it over the next one.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second. So I can follow my, I wrote all this, but I don't know what it is. So KISS. Anyone know what that acronym is? There you go. Yeah, don't try to do too much. Don't try to fly too close to the sun, because I assume if you're doing this at the grassroots level, you are not going to have a ton of help, or and just doing too much in excess, it gets sloppy. It just starts to look sloppy. So stick to what you know, and really focus on the points that you know you are strong at. If you're like, hey, I want to do a stream, but you don't have the equipment and you don't have the expertise to set up a stream, and the internet is hokey, just don't do it. Just don't even mess with it. Save yourself the time, save yourself the headache. People aren't going to watch it if it's bad, and you've just spent all this time and all this effort to do something that was unsuccessful.
And the rest of your event's going to suffer because of it.
Yeah, because you're going to be over there messing with the PC to get the stream back up, and there's other things that are going to be happening. Or you could be out there talking to people and interacting with people and building good face value with people. Plan out as much as possible beforehand. So go to the venue, look it over, understand what's going on, and obviously some of this stuff is going to be different if you go out and do this yourself. For what your actual business is. For us, it's, we go to the venues, we set stuff up, we coordinate the entire thing. So that's what we're doing. But just as the example would be, we go to the venue, we figure out where all the power is, where we're going to be set up at, get a general idea of how things are going to be set up and where everything needs to be to kind of give a good presentation. And just really pound all that out before it happens, because you're going to have things going wrong. You're probably going to have things going wrong. Something dumb always happens, and I even say that on here. Despite being proactive, something stupid could happen. Our smaller events, that usually doesn't, there isn't any fires that happen, but when you get into the larger scale stuff,
especially when you involve anything with internet.
Yeah. What if the power goes out? Now you have to address that issue. That's something you can't plan for. So know the unknowns and know the things that can go wrong, and be ready to address those when they do arise. But you can't be ready for everything. So be flexible in that regard. Just going further into that, bring extra equipment. If you have spares of stuff, bring it. We always have, if we're doing a major, like a very specific tournament or something, we always bring duplicates of the equipment that's vital to that tournament. So extra game copy, controllers, whatever it's going to be, bring it. We still do a lot of stuff with older CRT TVs, so we always bring extra CRTs. And as you know, those are really light. So if you were born before 2000, that is. But also checklists. Back to just pre-planning. Checklists are great. Make a checklist, keep them with you, and utilize them. We don't do that as much as we should, and we're guilty of that. And I'm telling you, from someone that does not do that, do that. Moving forward, do not assume the venue has something, or do not assume that something is going to be provided for you. Find out.
Don't ever assume. Find
out if they have it. Like if you need tables and chairs, do they have tables and chairs that are going to be there provided for you, or available for you to use? Yeah, you can see them when you're in there, but that doesn't mean when you go do the event that you're going to be able to use them. And I think you can confirm this. Tables and chairs, if you go to like an event space like this, you usually have to rent them, and they're quite expensive.
Yeah.
Very expensive.
Yeah, not including just the booth space itself. I'm pretty sure at least to give you an idea, the expo hall spots just for renting it for this time is $1,000 just for the space, and it was a lottery system. But you also have, most of the time they don't provide you a table or chair or anything. You actually have to pay or bring that yourself. And there are a lot of things, like they were saying, that you have to be proactive and think about You should basically have your own show. And my big thing is I love making sure everything is very neat, put together so you can find it, because the second you start throwing controllers or throwing random things in a box, you're never going to find it again. And also label all your equipment. It's a very good theft deterrent if it has at least some kind of logo to tell it's yours, because I've had instances where we had a Call of Duty tournament and we lost, I think, 6 or 8 PS4 controllers at one event. And it's because they weren't properly labeled and we weren't managing correctly. So keep that in mind as well, because people do have sticky fingers sometimes. And this equipment is your livelihood.
Yes, so.
Going forward, don't do that. And like Ross had already said previously in the presentation, is internet's expensive. Even up here, like I said, base, you're going to be probably at 10K at a convention like this. And most smaller venues like restaurants or whatever, if you're doing something there, their internet's probably not that great. Or if they do have good internet, their router's probably tucked like in the worst place to access it. And Wi-Fi is not, I wouldn't bank on Wi-Fi for a tournament if you're doing anything online. So we kind of avoid online stuff until we can find a venue that can provide us good internet that is, hard lined in. Kind of the final thing is to, not to pull back the curtain all the way and to kind of leave you on the one last super important thing, is that marketing is super duper important. Get to understand social media. Utilize it. It is free for the most part. Figure out, put someone in charge of that, let them take care of it. Learning how to do some kind of graphics that are semi-respectable is advised. Because that is going to be, if you're not actively out doing something, like some kind of event, you're not going to have a presence unless you decide to pay for like a radio ad or something, which I don't think anyone here would even consider that. But that is how you are reaching people, and that is how you are letting people know you exist. If there's no way for people to see what you're doing, you might as well not even do it.
Yeah, and another big thing that you should also do at your events and overall is network. The more people you can meet, the more conversations you have. It may seem dumb, but I have a huge stack of business cards in my pocket, and I handed them out to way too many people at this event. You never know. I take that tactic where I run blindfolded through the woods, and eventually I'll hit a tree. And yeah, you never know, because we had Cliffy B at one of our events, one of the founders of Epic, and you never know who's going to come to an event. So yeah, always introduce yourself and be a person that you want to see again, or we would want to be seen again. And it's funny how things work out if you just introduce yourself to people.
And Joe, you got anything, or Colin, you got anything on this?
I mean, I kind of reiterate that networking thing, and don't burn any bridges either. You never know when you're going to need that contact in the future. To echo what Ross was saying, I mean, business cards, I got my keys in the way this time, but yeah, I got a stack. I started at 500 at this event. I'm down to about 30. So same thing, get your name out there. Don't hesitate to pass it to somebody. You never know. You never know what's going to hit, what's going to miss. It doesn't hurt to hand out, a 3 cent or a 2 cent business card to somebody, and just make sure they've got your contact information, and make sure it's relevant contact information as well, something you actually pay attention to and listen to. But again, it's just running these events. It's never an easy thing. People think running events easy. I always tell my students, all right, you guys want to run an event? Let's do it. And I say go, and they just look at you. What? We need to go. Let's just have it. I'm like, no, that's not that easy. Just to have the event. There's actual process to doing this. And a lot of people don't realize how much work goes into it. And these guys have 40-hour-a-week jobs, and then they do this stuff. I mean, I don't, bless you, because I don't know. I'm glad somebody's doing this, so I don't have to, because that's not easy to do at all. But it's a project of passion. You have to be passionate about what you're doing, because you're not going to make millions and millions of dollars, and most people aren't going to make millions and millions of dollars working on running small-time esports events. But it's something that they love doing. It's something I love doing too. And we mostly do small-scale events on our campus because it's a small school. Shenandoah has about 4,000 students. Small school, and most of them have never heard of League of Legends. Most of them are FIFA and Madden. And of course Fortnite. I didn't count Fortnite anymore, it's a whole other thing. And running that event is a nightmare, to try to think about running an event for Fortnite. And so we stuck to Call of Duty for our first event last semester as my introduction to esports class. And it was not successful in their eyes because they had 2 outside teams come, 2. And I said, guys, did the event go? Well, they said, yeah. I said, did we lose money on it? They said, no. I said, success. Did you learn something from that event? Every single person said, yes, we learned something from that event. That's successful to me, okay? And we went through this same process right here, and I said, put that on your resume, that you helped run an event. They were all each of them signed up for a committee to be on to help run that event and put that event on. And so I let them choose where they wanted to work. Was it in the marketing? Was it in the partnerships? Was it on the rules committee? Was it on the executive committee where every other student had to report to them? I saw who the leaders were in that class. But now they all have a feather in their hat saying, I've helped run and done a part in this esports event. I can talk about that, and I can talk about these steps that you go through because it's more than just running the event. There's a lot that goes into it. This was, I think, 2 slides of, I don't know how many bullet points, 15 or so bullet points up there. And each of those takes a long time to execute. And they're all going on at kind of the same time a lot of times. And so you really got to stay organized on a lot of things. Labeling things, things you don't even think about. Having somebody to help you pick up the trash in an event. Make sure it's clean when you leave something. These little things that people don't think about when they run an event, those are the important skills that you've got to have and understand to have a quote-unquote successful event. Okay, so, that's kind of my part of this. I don't know if that means anything to anybody or adds anything, but
gives what I wrote some validation,
yeah.
so that feels good. Yeah, and there's stuff like, as I sit here and look at something, I probably could have put that up there, probably could put that up there. He mentioned organization. We have like all of these boxes that everything has a place, it's got a label on it, it's got all the separate systems, and that stuff will help you immensely. And like I said, there's stuff I just, I could probably fill another slide with bullet points, but I don't want to do that. And I know for all of us, we want to keep this more of a conversational type deal and give you guys time to ask questions. There was one bullet point I skipped on the last slide, which is, this isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. When you start something like this, or even if you're getting into esports and going to work for a different company, it's going to be a long road. You're going to have to develop years of experience. MAGFest is 15 plus years old. A lot of the bigger conventions and events are 15 plus years old, and they're just now hitting that 20K 20K badge sale mark. I don't even know if they make any money. They might just still be doing it because they like doing it. Who knows? But like you said, it's not easy. And a lot of people kind of take that for granted. Just looking on the outside, they're like, oh, they're just trying to make money. It's like, dude, I'm just trying to break even. Like, if I make money, it's a good day. Like, it's a great day.
Break even, it's a good day.
Yeah. And it's not always going to be like that. We're working to actively make money. Obviously, Brecht is a pretty serious business, multi-million-dollar business that has to make money to exist. Mm-hmm. So, I sit up here joking about it. I'm sure MAG makes some money. They wouldn't keep doing it at this level if they weren't. But it's still a lot of work, and the money there, it's not like Colin and I are driving Lambos. I'll tell you that much. Not yet.
Yeah.
Maybe next year, guys.
Yeah, and I will say, just make sure to realize how much actually goes in the back end. I'll be on TV, or I'll be watching TV, and see this major sports shot or something, and I always try and think, what in the background had to happen in order for that to occur? Because like we've been saying the entire time, there's so much work that goes into production, like video production or video games or anything along those lines, and please appreciate the people that are running the event for you. Don't automatically go to them frustrated about the fact that your bracket slot got messed up or something. Realize that they've been working for the past 2 weeks to make this event even possible. So yeah, just remember that these people are doing it for you, and just yeah.
Yep. And so I guess we can run over to this last little slide here. And I just kind of threw this together, and it's just a culmination of all the things we've already talked about. But even if you just want to work a regular job or just be a regular human, these are pretty good things to structure yourself around. But like, have integrity. When you say something, or you promise something to someone, or like, just, you know, tell the truth. One of my professors in college, he said, if you take everything you've ever owned, you got rid of it, and you lost everything you've ever had, at that point, the only thing you have is your integrity. And once you lose your integrity, like if you lie or you roll someone over, or you don't come through with something you promised, once you lose that, you have nothing. You have literally nothing. And you lose a lot of value when you lose that. But if you always have your integrity, you always have something that is of high value, because people can trust you. A work ethic. People that hustle, people see people that hustle. They do not go unnoticed. I guarantee that. So whenever you go help, if you can go volunteer, always hustle. If you start your own thing, you're doing an event, hustle. People see it and they really appreciate it. And although they aren't actively like out there shaking your hand saying, hey, great job, people do notice it. Like it said earlier, likable, nice. One of the things I told them when we started RPG was, okay guys, the idea is good. People like the idea. Now I want them, we just need to make it so they like us as people. And when they like us as people, they'll help us. They'll do stuff for us. And that's super important, because when someone approaches you and says, hey, let's do something, that's a great feeling, because I think it's because A, they like the idea, right? We got that. And B, they like us, which I think is wholly more important than just having a good idea.
Kind of goes along with networking a lot.
Yeah, and that goes back to the networking thing as well. Professional. So be, you know, you don't have to dress in a suit and tie everywhere, but have that, you know, when people get new, hey.
There's no tie.
Hey, I'm not giving him grief. But he does look nice. Okay, that's a beautiful suit. That's a beautiful jacket.
Thank
all
you.
right.
Thank you. $50 internet.
Oh, nice. But just have that aura of professionalism. Like, you know, you're here, you're about business, and you're going to come to whatever you do, and you're going to execute it. And then finally, attitude. Be positive. And really, it's kind of more, it even touches on professional, is just have that attitude like it's going to be good. Be positive. Give off that kind of energy, and people will want to gravitate towards that. Anything else to add on this, guys? Or?
I think professional kind of encapsulates everything up there.
Yeah.
To be honest, because you've got to be professional, and I think passionate too. If you're not doing, if you're doing stuff and you don't like it, stop doing it. Okay? Because again, if you're not making millions here, you're not driving the Lambos yet. But you know, so professionalism, that goes for more than just running events too. That's kind of a good attitude to have throughout life. Is that you should be passionate about what you're doing, enjoying what you're doing, be professional and have integrity. All these things kind of go along with ways you should be acting as, would you say, regular humans? Or
Yeah, like
humans?
like normal humans.
Anyway,
yeah, these are real general. Like you should, everyone should have most of these.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, have a good attitude and be likable and nice. There's no reason not to be likable and nice. You're gonna have your bad days, and you're gonna have other people that you're working with that have their bad days, and hopefully those two don't intersect with each other, because that's a really bad day for a lot of people around you. But you know, when you run an event, that work ethic, putting the work in, having integrity, being positive and upbeat. Running events is a customer service industry. Okay, and if you're not making your customers happy, they're not going to come back again. They're not going to be repeat customers. And then you got to get a whole new customer base for your next event, and that's hard to do. Okay, so you got to think about the customer first and foremost when you're running an event or doing a lot of other things. I mean, it's entertainment, and if people aren't entertained and have a good time, they're not going to do it again. Okay, and that's what this is all about, is trying to get people to do things over and over, get them involved, build this community, because video games are a great community. Esports is a great community. One of the byproducts that I didn't anticipate when I started my esports competitive team was how students from all different majors were going to come together and hang out with each other. They're friends now. They go and get food together. They study together. They help each other with their exams and projects. Not doing it for them, not cheating. But they're helping each other study and getting the tips and taking each other to get haircuts. One's car broke down, I'll drive you to help you get your car fixed and blah, blah, blah. And these people I never met before 4 months ago when the esports team started. It's because it's a community. I've been to MAGFest, it's my 4th year at MAGFest now, and I'm constantly blown away with how much of a community this is, how great people are here, how much they're willing to help each other out. Because my background is in sports and sport management, it's not like that in sports nearly as much. It's much more cutthroat a lot of times because it's all about the big business, the almighty dollar in that one. Because people are out there to make a lot of money. That's like their goal. And so it's much more stressful. People are wearing ties all the time. And this is dressed up for me. I was like, definitely not wearing a tie. And the sports jacket, I could just take it off and I just got my jersey on. Much more comfortable and laid back and easy to do because it's a different community and it's a very positive and vibrant community. And that's who you have to embrace with these events and try to reach to. And make sure they're having fun and they're able to embrace who they are and be around people that they want to be around with because it's just a really fun community of like-minded people that are now starting to really not come out of the woodworks necessarily, but get their own voice and their own place in our world. And that's what esports has done, that's what video games has done, is that it's allowed this community really to come out and be proud about who they are, finally. Because I've always been kind of a closet nerd gamer. I competed in Halo when I was in college. I had my LANs going through my dorm rooms. And there really wasn't a place for me. The grand prize was Balls energy drink. That was like the grand prize. I mean, that was it. There was like a case of balls. And we were traveling to Nashville to compete in this tournament from Georgia. And I was like, really, I got to travel to go get energy drinks? But we did it because it was fun. I didn't tell my parents I was doing it because I was kind of embarrassed about it. But that's not true these days. Okay, it's a very different scene, and it's only continuing to grow, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Ross had those numbers up there. I think it was $1.5 billion by 2020 for esports, not video games. Video games is way over that, but that's just esports. Whereas just like 5 years ago, 3 years ago even, I think it was like 350 million. That's a huge increase, and it's only getting bigger. So we need more event managers. We need more people to have these kind of characteristics to keep this community going and bring it out in the community.
Yeah. And so I think that's pretty much it for our overall thing. So if you have any questions, please, yes.
I just wanted to add something that I didn't see here. We just ran our first event in September. Joey showed up. His team, we had 20 plus universities come to our institution. The planning, you guys hit everything out of the park. I mean, that was so important for us. It was our first one. We knew we were going to make mistakes. But one thing that was really important for us is the post-event, post-mortem that we did. So we've done 3 of them with different units to find out, well, what really worked well and what didn't work so well without pointing fingers. Yeah. And I was just curious, do you guys do post-mortems or what is your after-action?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Every time as far as Raleigh Premier Gaming goes, every time we run an event, we have a third person as well. We meet up immediately afterwards, talk about it a little bit, but we always plan to go have dinner the next day or within a few days.
Usually it's kind of, we give it like a week because you have to step away from it for a while. We don't do anything like formal, like we don't have any like spreadsheet written out for it, but we do sit down and kind of look at the aspects after we've stepped away from it. And just like when you come to MAG, you have that like little bit of energy left over at the end of it, and you're feeling good about it no matter what. Or even when you leave a movie, you're like, okay, that movie was pretty good, but then when you step away from it and get to look back at it, that's kind of where you figure out the details that we liked and did not like.
Take off the rose glasses.
Yeah, because there is never a perfect event. You can plan, and I'm really bad about this, but I try and over-plan everything, but there's always something that goes wrong. Like he said earlier, basically event management, but when the actual event starts, is you are now a firefighter, putting out all the fires that are happening at your event and trying to make sure it is ran correctly. Because there's this theory, it's called the swan theory. All you have to do is make sure your event looks nice on the top of the water while they have no idea what's going on under the water. And so that is a huge thing. And yeah, I think the postmortems are a big thing, and it always helps because you always keep wanting to improve. step by step.
Yeah, and I thought the Hue Festival was great. I thought you all did a great job. But again, there's no perfect event out there. And you know, in our class, when we were in our Call of Duty thing, I came in the next day to class and I stood at the front and I said, "How'd it go?" Okay? And I just that's all I did. That's all I said. And then the conversation started, and the students were, you know, talking amongst each other. It was a great discussion, and it was really great for me because I just sat there and listened. I didn't have to do any work that day. And so I just listened to what their ideas were because they see it and they internalize it. They know what was good and what was bad, and they're more critical of themselves than I was on them a lot of times. And so I was like, yeah, it was terrible. I thought it was okay, but I thought, yeah, you should have done much better. I worked much harder. I thought it was all right. So, I mean, this post-mortem stuff I think absolutely is very important. And we had questions on our exam, like if you're to run another event, what would you do differently? So there's no right or wrong answer to that. It's critical thinking and analyzing what they did and talking about what they're going to do going forward. And in the event management class, when we run 2 events, they'll actually be able to implement those things they would have done differently. And so, yeah, it's completely necessary to talk and meet right after the event, give it some time, meet again, and then maybe a couple weeks, even after a month later, do it again to kind of rehash all those things that happen. Make sure you don't repeat your mistakes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can any of you guys comment on the evolution of the coaching position in esports and how they add, how they add additional value to teams, especially for these newer games where players aren't necessarily established yet, and there's no there aren't necessarily great players that can coach the new teams because the game is so new. Can you comment on how that's evolved? Because I know like a decade ago, teams didn't have coaches at all, and then they kind of had coaches who kind of stood in the back. And how's that role evolved over the last decade? So can you comment on that?
Yeah, I can attempt to comment on that. So at the collegiate level, we do have coaches for our teams, and a lot of times what we see, or what I've experienced right now, is a lot of the players we have are actually better than my coaches skill-wise. So the coaches are actually more like managers, if you think about it that way, where they're going over strategy, setting up comps, reviewing film, doing that kind of thing, putting the right people in the right position to succeed. Not necessarily doing the skills and drills. To do that, you have to get very specialized coaching from professionals out there. So you pay them on like an ad hoc basis. So you might have them Skype in or remotely Zoom in or something, video call, video conference in to get their expertise for like a 1 practice here, 1 practice there. And they can run upwards of $500 an hour. So they can get really, really expensive. But coaches are, you know, from what we've seen in the past where, you know, there was nobody coaching, and then you had some teams getting more organized with a coach standing behind them. And now the coaches or trainers or whatever they're being called these days, they're really specializing in one particular game, and they're selling themselves, and people are hiring them, you know, to teach them things like Fortnite. I know Fortnite coaching is a big thing right now, Fortnite training. And parents are like, seriously? That's a thing you could be involved in? And so it's becoming more legitimized as we go, this idea of coaching, but you know, at the collegiate level, yes, there are some schools that can afford to hire full-time head coaches for Overwatch, for League of Legends. But there's not a lot of schools that can afford that right now. And so what we're seeing them mostly is what we have a head coach. And that head coach is actually more like a program director or like an athletic director where they oversee the entire program. They might know a little bit about Overwatch, maybe a little about League of Legends, but a lot about Rocket League. Or, you know, they might have expertise in one game, but a little bit about the others. Where again, they're more managing than they are actually coaching. I know that more coaches are sought for in the industry these days because you want to optimize performance as best you can when you're competing at a high level. And so we're seeing more people trying to get trained as coaches, and that's why we're going to institute this coaching track at SU, where people that take that are going to be required to get a coaching certificates because the state of Virginia requires you to have that if you're going to coach in high schools, and the state of Virginia is looking to do this in high schools in a much more organized way. And so we're going to require them to get that certificate and actually coach our team as they're getting their degree. So some of their practical experiences, which they're all required to do, is that they're going to work with our varsity team to actually coach at least one of the games. And they can choose what game they want. And so that gives them that experience because the industry is looking for more and more qualified coaches. And as more players retire at age 23, 24, you're going to see more of them get into coaching. I think they get some casting as well. But you're going to see more and more get into the coaching side and keep streaming on Twitch because that's where the money is. But I think you're going to see more and more coaches that work with more players as we continue to go. And because, you know, just like traditional sports, that evolution has completely changed from where it started to where it is now, where most coaches, I mean, if you look at basketball players, they're not better than their players. There's not a whole lot of coaches better than LeBron James right now. So it's more about managing And it's way more psychological than anything else. You got trainers for the physical side. The coach is more like a manager, just putting their people in the right position to be as successful as possible. Is really what a coach is doing these days.
And just to kind of touch on that, so I played baseball my entire life, so I can look at a coach from that aspect. So, like you said, there's going to be specialized coaches. So if you go to football, you have the offensive coordinator and all these people that work specifically in this area of the game. And then there's the head coach that kind of has very good general technical knowledge. And that's kind of what a coach is someone who has very good general technical knowledge to be able to, like you said, watch the film and see what his players are doing, and be able to critique them and kind of guide them and say, hey, you need to kind of be working on this, that's not going great. Now, like you said, the guy might be awful at the game that he's coaching, but he understands it at a deeper technical level than most people. So
that was my attempt at answering. As I said, I was going to attempt to answer.
I've got 3 questions for you guys, and I'm not going to rapid fire it. Just let me know what works for you guys. First question is licensing for games. You guys are working with other companies, IPs, software, hardware, streaming services. How much goes into paying out licensing to use for different events, or have you been able to kind of skirt under the radar for your events, or mishmash?
So when it comes to the IPs and things like that, or even at my biggest event, like 10,000 people, it doesn't blip the radar of these video game companies really, because unless you're rivaling their major tournaments and prize pool, which is upwards of $250,000 plus, depending on the game, all you're doing is making people want to play their game more. So it's a win-win in their book. And yeah, so to answer your question, not really. There are some, and he may be able to speak on the fact that when you actually have an official organization like a college or the NCAA and those kind of things, much bigger conversations will be had. But in the current state, most small-scale gaming events or anything we would do isn't going to have to deal with any of that kind of licensing issues.
Yeah, and I know that Blizzard has specific guidelines that you have to follow if you have a certain number of people, or you have to use the word community in one of their tournaments for one of their games in order to run it. So very specific guidelines to do that kind of stuff. As far as NCAA, I don't know how long we have left for NCAA conversation. If the NCAA comes in and works with collegiate eSports, it's going to be a very different landscape. And this is a conversation I've had in every eSports panel I've done at MAGFest, and my 3rd one now, because it's something that's very relevant and timely. And actually, in a couple of days, the NCAA is about to have their major convention of the year. And I think it's like Wednesday, and I know for a fact they have a large portion of the main days dedicated to the discussion of esports. And I've heard rumblings in the industry that this is going to be the time when they're going to say, we are going to adopt esports as an NCAA sport. I hope
that doesn't happen.
I do too, but I hesitate because it has legitimacy, but I'm not worried about that, but it adds structure. Esports is the Wild West right now with governing bodies. And, if the NCAA were to get in, they have things in place that would help it get more structured. Things would have to change. As far as like streaming and making money on Twitch, that whole thing with the NCAA and student athletes, that's a huge issue right now. But I think that it can help. I think it can help. It can add some positives, the NCAA can, but I think the negatives so far do outweigh the positives. But I'm trying to see the silver lining because I think it's going to happen sooner than later. And then I'll leave it to them to work out things with Blizzard and Riot to get those IPs and the rights to use their games, because they're going to have to sign some kind of long-term agreement for the right to be able to run these tournaments and not interfere with their majors. Because that's, Blizzard and Riot don't want any interference at all with their major events. And so, the Overwatch League starting February 14th, I think, and it runs through close to the end of summer, somewhere around there. So, in my mind, NCAA is going to say, all right, we'll start it in October and run through January. Something like that, to not interfere as much as possible and sign contracts to do that kind of thing. But it's going to be strange if it happens.
Yeah, I guess kind of pivot off of that. You mentioned that Virginia is considering esports in the high schools.
Yeah.
Is esports in general moving towards like a high school, college pro model? Because before it was kind of get your guys, start your team, you know, you think of a team name, and it's very, you know, unstructured, it's organized, it's kind of whatever you come up with. But are we seeing that kind of structure with like some of these established teams, like I don't know, like Final Boss and, you know, all those like from the Halo days, like those brands, like EG, Evil Geniuses, you see those brands kind of starting to have staying power now.
Right.
So you see those becoming like professional teams, like colleges and high schools coming under that, like pro sports. Do you see that happening?
I'll start quick and I'll let you all talk about this too. I do see it going that way. That's just a natural evolution in North America that we do that. In other countries, you know, esports was kind of like more the club model that we would see with soccer clubs. And we still do see that, because like Cloud9 has teams that compete all over the place in all kinds of different games. But I do see the natural evolution of sports, and I do call esports a sport. Natural evolution of sports in North America is to go to that system where you've got organized teams at the high school level. They matriculate to the college level. They matriculate to the pros. Esports is a little different because obviously the top gamers are more like college age and sometimes late high school age students, even regular high school age students. And so that could be a little different, but I think we're going to see this evolution where it is very organized and structured at the high school level, very organized and structured at the college level with scholarships at the Division I, Division II level. D3 doesn't offer athletic scholarships. And then, you know, there will be that professional system still there where students can still be professionals, but those that aren't professionals that want to compete at a high level will go to college to compete, but also to get a degree. That's the point of college, even though, I almost said professional football players in college, because they kind of are. Even though football players in college lose sight of that a lot of times, that they're there to get a degree. And then, yeah, they have to play football, sometimes at a high level, and they'll make millions. But that's very, very few and far between that happens for. And the same thing in esports. To be a professional esport player and make a lot of money for a long time, very few can actually do that. Very small percentage. Not everybody can do that. So I see college being that avenue for them to go to do something they love to do and also get an education to work in the field they want to work in, because they're probably not going to be competing. And it takes way more people to put on esports events than to compete in esports events. Yeah. I mean, it's like looking at the end of a movie. And I've heard my friend use this analogy 2 days ago on my panel. If you watch the credits of a movie, it's way more than just the actors in the movie that put that on. Okay, way more. That actor list is very small compared to the rest of everything else that goes on, because it takes a lot more people to work in the industry to run things than to actually compete in the event itself.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're running low on time. What we can do is, I would like to take a picture with all the people that are still here. And then once we do that, we can kind of have a conversation down below and give out business cards and answer more questions. But so yeah, if you could all kind of come and stand right here together, and then we'll do that whole picture thing.
Everybody smile for me.
I've seen them where I take a dig here. It's like
Before they sold out.
I like this. I need someone to go take the picture. Absolutely. Can one of you take some picture?
Get things started.
Okay.
So he's gonna.
Yes, have him contact me. I can talk him through whatever you need to, because it's not always easy to sell that to our administrators. Details for the violence, simulation stuff. So I'm happy to talk about it.
Okay, excellent.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Yes.
And thanks everyone.